We have more big news of the Montreal Canadiens organization. They fired their goaltending coach and seem to have hired a new director of goaltending, creating a new department. We'll discuss this news coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned, we had some surprising news announced by the Montreal Canadiens organization last night, which came shortly after their 3-1 victory over the Ottawa Senators, which also marked new head coach Dominic Ducharme's first win as a head coach in his third game behind the bench for the Habs. So it was kind of a surprising time, to kind of almost like steal his thunder in a way. But they announced last night that they fired goaltending coach Stephane Waite, and he's been replaced by Sean Burke, who's not only the goaltending coach, but his title is actually going to be the Director of Goaltending. So it looks as though the Montreal Canadiens are creating kind of like a goaltending department like we saw the Florida Panthers do, having former longtime NHL goalie Roberto Luongo head that department. So obviously the Panthers really for once was kind of like a trendsetter, and other teams are starting to follow suit here with a similar type of thing. So it's expected that not only Sean Burke will be coaching the Habs NHL goalies, but be obviously spending time and focusing on the development of the other goaltenders at the other levels within their organization as well. So certainly a fairly substantial move. Now, it's surprising for a number of reasons. For one, Stephane Waite has been highly regarded as one of the best goaltending coaches, not only in the NHL, but around the world. He's been at his job with the Habs for, I believe it's about 8 years. He coached for the Chicago Blackhawks in a similar role for about a decade before that. He's been at, that kind of job for a long time, really well respected. Now, I will acknowledge, though, at the same time, we've seen Carey Price be inconsistent, really on a off and on basis here for the last 2 to 3 years. Ever since that season when he won all the hardware, his game hasn't been consistent all season through, and he's had some big stretches where he's just had a hard time getting his form back, and it's ultimately cost the Habs too many victories and a lack of success there because of it. So obviously I can understand in a way perhaps the desire for change. I mean, he's been at the job a long time, and as they say in coaching, in hockey, quite often sometimes you just need a different voice, different opinion, a different take on things to kind of get yourself reset and re-energize, re-motivate, and all that kind of stuff. So the fact that they just kind of cleaned house a little bit with their coaching staff just not very long ago at all. I mean, it was only last week when they fired head coach Claude Julien and assistant coach Kirk Muller. You would think that they would have removed Waite from his post at that time as well and just did a clean slate all at one time, rather than announce the goaltending coach be let go a week later instead of right after Dominic Ducharme's first win as new head coach. I mean, obviously, whatever's best for the organization is fine, but clearly Marc Bergevin and Stephane Waite have worked together a long time. They both came from the Chicago organization. Obviously, Marc Bergevin rose through the ranks there in Chicago relatively quick in about a 4-year span. Bergevin himself went from scouting to an assistant coach, director of player personnel, assistant GM for only a year, and then got the job in Montreal. And then shortly after, Stephane Waite came over to the Habs to be the goaltending coach. So they worked together in Chicago, and they've worked together in Montreal for a long time, for the last 8-9 years since they've been in their roles there. So clearly, Bergevin knows what he's capable of firsthand. And Sean Burke's also a very well-respected goalie coach as well. Obviously, he worked for the Coyotes for a long time in that role. Somebody who's already been working for Montreal. So essentially, this is a promotion for Sean Burke. He's already been working with the Habs as a scout, and he's also been somebody who's been known to be very interested, in fact, in becoming a general manager in the NHL, and has thrown his name into the ring for several GM openings here in the past year or two. Obviously not getting those opportunities just yet, but he's certainly somebody that's viewed upon as a future GM around the NHL. He's had a similar opportunity with Hockey Canada as well. We've seen him do some leading in that kind of job as well for the past Olympics when there was no NHL participation and stuff. So clearly somebody that has management aspirations, but I would think that the main reason that he would kind of commit to this kind of role. Obviously, they're going to want probably some kind of commitment from him to not pursue GM jobs for at least a little while. Probably is the opportunity to work with Carey Price. I mean, you can say what you want about Carey and his inconsistencies over the past few years especially, but he has a skill set that a lot of goalies and a lot of goalie coaches wish they could work with, and he's a very talented guy. And like, you know what, as we heard from Brendan Gallagher say last night, he always does seem to bounce back. Sometimes it takes longer than others, and those losses in between are kind of make the difference in the season. But obviously, to get a fresh approach to working with him could very well make the difference for getting Carey Price back on track and hopefully keeping him there. I mean, he's got a massive contract with a no-move clause, and you know, nobody's going to want to take that contract if they ever decide they want to move on from Price. It's certainly something that pretty much has to work. When you're getting paid that much money, it has to work, or it's an absolute disaster for yourself as well as the team. At the end of the day, he's still getting paid regardless of his level of success on the ice. So certainly some interesting maneuvers here by the Montreal Canadiens. Like I said, a well-respected guy, Sean Burke, comes in, director of goaltending. Be interested to see if he adds anybody else in the department to work with them in that regard. I mean, they have some interesting goalie prospects around the AHL and other leagues around as well. I mean, I know Caden Primo is kind of a guy that's looked upon as possibly being the goalie of the future. Obviously, they have Price and Allen in the NHL level, so lots of goalies that could use some assistance, and always room to get better. So be curious to see how they kind of start this new department. I mean, they didn't officially announce a new department, but essentially that seems to be what it is. And I would think at some point Sean Burke will probably have somebody else join him there to kind of help look after all of the Habs goalies and the prospects that they have everywhere else. So let me know your thoughts on this Habs news. Do you think it's going to help Carey Price? Your thoughts on Sean Burke and what he can bring to the table here? And obviously, if it'll help Carey Price's consistency problem, and if it'll help get the Habs back on track to being a more secured playoff team for this year and beyond. So let me know your thoughts down in the comment section and we can discuss further. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content. And give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'd appreciate it if you did. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.